Okay, hi. This is week five, grammar and syntax, introduction to linguistics. Um, Grammar and syntax encompass a lot in linguistics, and um, again, this is one of the core classes that you would take if you major in linguistics, where you have both an undergraduate and a graduate component, and it can be a little bit challenging because of all the nomenclature and typology in grammar and syntax where you have to learn a lot of terms. If you haven't been following grammar terms and your education up to this point, you know, it'll take some time to remember them. And so that's why I have assignments, that go over things in general, but they don't really require you to do like I'm not, and actually nobody does this, like nobody will. On the they ask you to, and of course objectives, they ask you to analyze, um analyze what they call it syntactic constituents in simple sentences and some of this other stuff. um in general we get some kind of overview and that's it in an introduction to linguistics course. You don't go deep into it. It takes a lot of time for people to orient themselves in a proper syntax class, where you're looking at, you're trying to look for understanding like grammar trees and diagramming systems and ways of organizing language that can apply to any language, and they'll give you other languages to work on, grammatical elements and stuff like that. But so the CSLO out of the four that we have is to compose grammatical analysis on phrases and clauses. And the course objectives include identify and exemplify parts of speech. And then the other stuff we're not working on until we get to morphology. Um, Analyze syntactic constituents in simple sentences and analyze compound and complex sentences, as well as identifying correct dangling modifiers. Um, Honestly, I don't, that won't be on the test, and I don't see any reason why they would put that in an introduction to linguistics course. Um, a compound sentence is just you have a thing stand as a sentence itself, an independent clause, and you join at least two of them. So if I say, um, I put on my glasses and I drank from my cup of coffee, I could say, I put on my glasses, and I could say, period, full stop, as the British say. I could say, I drank from my cup of coffee. Those are two independent clauses. You got a subject and a predicate in each. And you can join independent clauses with a semicolon, right, instead of a period. Well, they're not joined if it's a period; they're separate. But you can put it there. You can use a comma and a coordinating conjunction for like fanboys. If you guys have tutored English, right? For and nor, but or yet so. But it's for that's not a preposition. Like I went to the store for milk, but um, she was beautiful for I loved her so. No, I loved her so for she was beautiful, since she was beautiful, because, which also sounds pretty superficial, but the for is a different for and nor, but or yet. So those are coordinating conjunctions. Complex sentences are where you have an independent clause and you have a what we call a dependent or a subordinate clause. So if I say, no, those two don't really link. Uh, well, you could. You could say same two independent clauses. You make one dependent. So if I say, and we're using a subordinate conjunction like because or although or while. So while I put on my glasses, right? While I put on my glasses, I took a drink from my cup of coffee. So the first one, if I say while I put on my glasses, it doesn't, um, it can't stand alone. It's not a complete idea. That's a dependent clause. So if you put together one independent clause and one dependent clause, you get what we call a complex sentence. Um, so compound is two equal, could be independent clauses, or that could be sentences standing alone, standing together, sorry. They could be, if they would stand alone, independent, but you join them, they're they're fine. Complex, one is dependent, one is independent. Dangling modifier is just I don't agree with. I don't know why linguists would put that there as something you have to do. Um, it's generally we don't care. Um, oh, well, actually, no, dangling modifiers. I was thinking misplaced modifiers. I know it's really not something that comes up in my tutoring or teaching. I mean, other than you don't need to go out dangling modifier. You just right. Um, it's misleading or it's just out there walking toward the forest. The sun began to set, so it sounds as if the sun is walking toward the forest. I mean, I wouldn't even name it, if I was because the naming is actually more of a headache than the explanation. Just I would ask somebody to clarify what's happening. Um, so anyway, don't worry about J on the test because I'm not putting it on the test. If you teach elementary school, middle school, high school, uh, college, you may not have to talk about compound. Well, you will talk about it in elementary and middle school, compound and complex sentences, but you're gonna teach about it at the higher levels, but you may not use the terms, mostly just the punctuation. All right. So, um, one of the easiest ways to just learn or go through the course. There's a lot this week because there's a lot in syntax and grammar. Um, I don't want to explain all of it because I think that I don't, you know, it's pretty self-explanatory, a lot of it. So, the field of syntax looks at mental rules we have for forming sentences and phrases. So you get the word, um, really you should say, I mean, word clause, word phrase clause. Um, but for forming sentences, for example, in English, it's grammatical to say I speak English, but ungrammatical to say English speak I. Um, because subjects normally precede verbs, which precede the object, and there's other rules you could apply. So, um, so basically, you know, syntax is looking at what makes grammatical formations, what makes in English and other languages, and they are um, they're different in different languages, and some things are the same. So one thing I want to do is look really quick at. So one of the assignments I have you do is because it is parts of asking for parts of speech. And I give you a bit of time to do this, even is so write down so the building blocks for grammar. I mean, it's hard to have a conversation about grammar if you don't know the eight parts of speech. Um, ESL teaching, if you're going to teach ESL, a lot of times, like in programs I had where I had my own classroom, I would have a word wall, similar to many elementary schools, what they do. And the word wall, you would classify all the words according to parts of speech. So it would have nouns and pronouns and adjectives and verbs, adverbs, preposition, conjunction, and interjection. And so also I threw into this subjects and predicates, and that's important to know. That's something you'll probably deal with more likely than anything else if you're teaching at the higher levels. Lower levels, you'll be dealing with parts of speech. Um, but I went back to these like kind of retro. I've used these in my classes. I think they're kind of fun. They have little songs, and some of the songs are really funky. Some of them are corny as hell, but some are okay. Some are really funky. And um, so Schoolhouse Rock. This is nouns. What I'd like you to do, and oh wow, they kind of go over a little bit some of the definitions, but I want you to like watch it and record the definition and examples. And then I've given you like a small set of parts of speech that I want you to recognize. And I didn't put the links for all eight. Well, really, it's nine links, but all all of these. Um, you can just look them up. Um, I give you the eight. Then there's Mr. Morton. So School of Rock Conjunction. This is like the most famous one. This one right here. I don't know if you ever heard it. I remember it from childhood. Not saying everybody should.
It's bigger. Your mind must flower. It's great to learn.
'Cause knowledge is power.
It's Schoolhouse Rocking, the tip off the block of your favorite Schoolhouse Rock. You've been waiting for.
Conjunction, junction, what's your function?
Hooking up words and phrases and clauses.
Conjunction, junction, how's that function?
I got three favorite cards that get most of my job done.
Conjunction, junction, what's their function?
I got and, but, and or. They'll get you pretty far. And, that's an additive, like this and that. But, that's sort of the opposite. Not this, but that. And then there's or. O-R. When you have a choice like this or that.
Oh, that's the one that always kind of stuck in my head from the 1970s. Conjunction, junction. So there's coordinating junctions, and, but, and or, and it's good. There's also School of Rock, Mr. Morton, the story of Mr. Morton, and this is or the tale. Sorry. Oh, you can go to a play all thing, and this is good. Subjects and predicates.
Here we are driving down the road, and all of a sudden,
Yeah. Excuse me.
This is the tale of Mr. Morton. Mr. Morton is who? He is the subject of our tale, and the predicate tells what Mr. Morton must do.
Yeah. Mr. Morton is the subject, and then the predicate tells what he does, right?
Street, Mr. Morton walks. Mr. Morton talked to his cat. Mr. Morton talked, hello cat, you look good. Mr. Morton was lonely. Mr. Morton is the subject of the sentence, and what the predicate says he does.
I wanted to include these. I think they're good to help memory for you as a teacher, future teachers, as well as students. And sometimes students will be like, oh, that's for little kids. And it's like, well, yeah, kind of, but it still has its own style. Most of them that's pretty cool and catchy. And so that's the Schoolhouse Rock, grammar, parts of speech, and subject predicate. Those are things that you'll need to know. I have the typical, um, the crash courses.
Hi, I'm Taylor and welcome to Crash Course Linguistics. Let's say we have a bag of words and we want to use them to tell a story. This should be simple enough. We pull out some words one at a time and we get sees, Taylor, rabbit, and the. Okay, so we have some idea of what's going on, but we're left with an important question. Am I stealthily sneaking up on the rabbit? Or has the rabbit seen me first and hopped away before I have a chance to take a photo? I need to know if I'm going to get some sweet validation from the gram. Words by themselves are great, but they're not enough. We also need some way of conveying the relationships between the words. In this case, the difference between Taylor sees the rabbit and the rabbit sees Taylor. We need what linguists call syntax.
So we have our crash courses. There's actually two. Um, and they're good. The second one, I believe, goes more into, yeah, syntactic trees. And um, this is something I mean, if you get into it,
I have to finish writing this paper.
I have a question about, later, I have a question about,
Taylor, and welcome to Crash Course Linguistics. In episode 3, we learned about how to test which parts of a sentence are constituents, or closely related subgroups of words. So in the sentence, Taylor sees the rabbit, we know the rabbit.
question about diagramming. I'm going to have like there are some questions where I'm asking you to and have a whole video on it. And I'm going to have a question about X bar theory, which is like basically how they make these kind of triangular kind of flow charts of grammar or something. And I'm not asking you to master this because, yeah, no. But I just want you to have some exposure to that, and there's two videos that basically do that. Grammar and syntax. So these are pretty straightforward. The wiki books. This is from the virtual linguistics campus. Really good. I mean, if you want to go into more depth and looking at any linguistics topic, they basically have the Open Linguistics University. They have, you know, they have videos that are like free courses, and kind of in that, because grammar, this is extra credit. If you want, University of Texas Austin, it has EFL, ESL kind of overview. If any of you want to teach ESL, right, or you just want extra credit, you can do these lessons. Watch this. There are when you go to review and reflect, this is all I'm really asking you to do. It's like the review and reflect parts. I mean, you can read it all and do all the parts. And if you're interested, if you want to know this, because it's very good. And, um, but you have to turn in for the extra credit is these review questions, which they check the answers, but still, it's just knowing kind of some of the framework and where syntax and grammar. If you're going to linguistics, knowing some of the framework, knowing where syntax and grammar fit into that. There's a lot of places where it does. One of it is more theoretical linguistics, where you're making, trying to work up systems for what they call generative grammar, and the other one um, is more applied linguistics and ESL teaching. Now, you also, like some people have wanted to, um, I'm sorry, do research on endangered languages or something like that. You will be making grammars. Um, this here, this is, you know, this is actually, I didn't want to put too much in the phonology, so that's there. And it's a little bit of a preview of um, developmental stages and stuff like that. Uh, Well, I had a whole bunch. I was having to do a whole bunch in the grammar, essentials linguistics, and oh, sorry, no, that's not the one I was looking at. That deals with some phonemic and phonology, so it's kind of a review of what we're going through uh, last week. Here, okay, so this was a not deleted. This is some of you that had wrong date, but it wasn't in the. In general, if it's not in the modules, it's not due. That's a remnant of a previous lesson. where I had made it into a discussion board. So just do the discussion board, um, but you can get double credit for doing both of those, basically. Um, well, do both of them, but it's the same thing. You can turn the same thing. You just got to comment for this one. Uh, this is the one from the book. What I did is like I had a whole bunch of stuff I was happy to do, and then basically I just ask you, two chapters, and I went down to one question. What is X bar theory? Answer that. Um, and I had to write for my master's. I think I don't know, there was an objective portion that took 2 or 3 hours, like we had multiple choice. And I had like 3 days of essay questions. So I had to write an explanation for X bar theory that was several pages long with the examples. You don't have to do that. Um, giant thing, traditional versus modern grammar, prescriptivism versus descriptivism, syntactic trees. Um, this is the overview of how to make these syntactic tree diagrams. There are some questions where I asked you to have a go at it. You might have to write it out, but okay, this is just reference, this extra credit. Partial review. Let's see. There's a couple of syntax questions. Okay, so there's your phonology, IPA questions. You haven't got to this part, the morphology yet. Okay, these are the only ones that, oh my gosh, they're not underlined here. Oh no, you don't have to underline them. You have to pick the one. So what's the preposition? He walked around the corner, around. What's the pronoun? Hopes that she is pronoun. Actually, so all of your test questions about grammar, I just take from those 20. There's no new ones. And this is again like this is previewing what'll be on the midterm. We haven't got to all of it yet. And I put some extra credit after. So just so you know. Okay, I went over in the time that I wanted to in this. I apologize for that. I hope it was helpful. I hope that you can watch it and speed it up. And I'd rather keep to like 10 minutes, but I kind of had to explain a bit more. Morphology and etymology should be a lot shorter, as should week 7, week 8 as well. All right.